The evening of November 5th, 1940, cast a cold gray shroud over the North Atlantic. Amidst the rolling swells, 38 merchant ships of Convoy HX-84 were racing toward Britain. These vessels were the lifeblood of a nation at war, carrying vital food, fuel, and raw materials. Protecting this massive flock was a single improbable shepherd, the HMS Jervis Bay. Once a luxury passenger liner, she had been hastily fitted with 7 outdated 6-inch guns to serve as an armed merchant cruiser. She was a ship of peace, forced into the role of a warrior, commanded by the experienced and resolute Captain Edward Fegen.
Unidentified ship
As the
spotted.
sun dipped toward the horizon, a sharp-eyed lookout on the bridge shouted, "Unidentified ship spotted." On the horizon, a dark silhouette broke the monotony of the waves. Captain Fegen didn't hesitate. "Hard to port, course to intercept," he commanded. He knew his duty was to put his ship between any threat and the vulnerable merchantmen. The Jervis Bay veered out of the center of the convoy, charging toward the mysterious visitor. "Send the challenge signal," Fegen ordered. A lamp began to flicker across the water, flashing a secret British code. The silence that followed was agonizing. Then the mystery vessel responded, not with a friendly code, but with flashing the exact same message back. It was a classic German ruse to buy time. Fegen's blood ran cold as the silhouette became clearer. This was no commerce raider or light cruiser. It was the HMS Admiral Scheer, one of Germany's feared pocket battleships. Bristling with 6 11-inch guns and secondary batteries, she possessed enough power fire to wipe out the entire convoy in a single hour. "Sound action stations!" Fegen's voice rang out over the alarms. He knew the Jervis Bay was hopelessly outclassed. A direct engagement would be suicide. However, if he could distract the Scheer, he might buy the convoy enough time to scatter and disappear into the night. Get the convoy away, send up the flares, and lay down the smoke. The sky turned a violent red as signal flares arched upward. The merchant ships began their desperate escape, turning away in a chaotic ballet of churning water and strained engines. On the deck of the Jervis Bay, sailors threw smoke floats into the sea. Thick gray clouds billowed up, forming a protective wall behind which the convoy began to vanish. Fegen turned to his helmsman with a grim finality. "Turn to starboard, make full speed, and close the distance." The Jervis Bay was no longer just a guard. She was now bait. 10 nautical miles away, Capitan Zurzee Theodor Kranke of the Admiral Scheer watched with growing annoyance. He had expected the merchant ships to be easy prey, but this lone, battered-looking liner was steaming directly at him. "Captain, one of the ships is moving to attack. It looks like a steamliner," reported an officer. Kranke scoffed. "Do they even have guns?" His officer replied that if they did, they were puny compared to the Scheers. Kranke ordered his ship to turn to port, bringing his massive 11-inch broadside to bear on the Jervis Bay. Aboard the Jervis Bay, able seaman Sam Patience and his gun crew waited by the forward 6-inch gun. They were still far out of range, but they stood ready, watching the horizon. Suddenly, the sky seemed to tear open. The Admiral Scheer had fired its first salvo. The massive shells whistled through the air for 20 seconds before crashing into the sea just ahead of the Jervis Bay's bow, sending up columns of water higher than the masts. The Germans were finding their range. The second salvo roared. The shells landed close behind the ship, bracketing her perfectly. "They have us!" someone yelled. Then came the third salvo, a direct hit. The Jervis Bay shuddered violently as a massive explosion tore through the bridge. Captain Fegen was thrown to the deck. As he struggled to find his feet, he felt a sickening, agonizing pain. Looking down, He realized with horror that his arm had been torn away at the shoulder. Despite the catastrophic injury and the searing pain, Fegen's spirit remained unbroken. He refused to go to the sickbay. Supported by a fellow sailor, he descended to the deck, determined to continue the fight. The Admiral Scheer was now firing relentlessly. Shrapnel rained down, and the ship's superstructure began to crumble. Another round blasted the white ensign, the British naval flag, from the main mast. The crew looked up in silence as the tattered flag fluttered down into the smoke. But the spirit of the crew matched their captain. "Fire emergency!" they shouted, training taking over where fear might have reigned. Amidst the flames, a sailor grabbed a fresh white ensign, climbed the shattered, splintered mast, and nailed it back into place. A cheer erupted from the surviving gunners. They weren't done yet. The battle had become a scene from a nightmare. The Admiral Scheer began firing its secondary 6-inch guns at the fleeing merchant ships, but the Jervis Bay's continued resistance forced Cronke to keep his primary 11-inch guns focused on her. Every minute the Jervis Bay stayed afloat was a minute the convoy moved further into the darkness. Fegen, pale from blood loss but standing tall, knew he had to keep the ship moving. With the bridge gone, he made his way toward the rear control compartment to regain steering. At the guns, Sam Patience and his team were working like machines. They rammed shell after shell into the breach, firing as fast as the old machinery would allow. Sam watched his shells arc through the air, only to splash harmlessly into the ocean, miles short of the German battleship. "We might as well be throwing spuds," someone grumbled.
Captain.
But they knew their spuds were working. They were keeping the Scheer's attention fixed on them. Captain Cronke on the Scheer was becoming frustrated. "If this ship will not surrender, she must be annihilated," he commanded. He ordered a concentrated barrage. A shell struck the center of the Jervis Bay, and the ship lurched as a massive fire broke out below decks. Sam, still at his post, saw Captain Fegen approaching the aft control room. He was so close. Sam shouted encouragement, "Come on, sir!" But in that instant, a German shell struck the compartment directly. The room vanished in a whirl of orange flame and jagged steel. When the smoke cleared, the heroic Captain Fegen was gone, killed instantly in the line of duty. The Jervis Bay was now a dying ship. She was listing heavily to one side as water poured into her shattered hull. The order finally came: abandon ship. Sailors began to scramble for the remaining lifeboats, many of which had been destroyed by shrapnel. Sam Patience found himself dazed and alone on the tilting deck. He couldn't swim, and the thought of the icy Atlantic filled him with terror. He saw the lifeboats pulling away and felt the ship shifting beneath him. Suddenly, he spotted a single life buoy stuck in its casing. He lunged for it, pulling with every ounce of strength he had left. It wouldn't budge. "Come on!" he screamed. With one final desperate heave, the buoy came free. Sam clutched it to his chest and jumped into the freezing black void.
The impact with the water knocked the breath from Sam's lungs. The cold was a physical blow, like 1,000 needles stabbing his skin. He paddled frantically, trying to move away from the suction of the sinking ship. He looked back one last time. The HMS Jervis Bay, engulfed in flames, but still flying her defiant white ensign, slipped beneath the waves. Silence suddenly fell over the water, broken only by the distant echoing booms of the Admiral's Scheer as it resumed its hunt. Cronke was now hunting in the pitch black. He spotted the SS Rangatiki and fired, scoring a hit on its stern. But the time bought by the Jervis Bay had allowed the merchant ships to lay effective smoke screens. Every time Cronke thought he had a target, it vanished into the haze. Low on ammunition and wary of being caught in the light of dawn, Kronka eventually grew impatient. "Break off the attack. We are chasing ghosts out here," he muttered. The Admiral's sheer turned and slipped away into the vastness of the ocean. Back in the water, Sam was losing the battle against the cold. His limbs were heavy and his mind was drifting. Just as he felt he could hold on no longer, he heard voices. A small lifeboat from the Jervis Bay was patrolling the debris field, looking for survivors. With the last of his energy, Sam splashed toward them and was hauled aboard. He collapsed among his shivering shipmates. They sat in silence, watching the horizon where their ship had gone down. They were alone in the middle of the Atlantic, and their chances of rescue were slim. Merchant ships were strictly ordered not to stop for survivors in submarine-infested waters. But hours later, a light appeared. A ship was approaching. "Help us!" the men shouted. As the vessel drew closer, they heard the sounds of a foreign language. They feared it was a German ship coming to take them prisoner. Instead, it was the Swedish freighter Sturahome. Her captain, Sven Olander, had watched the Jervis Bay's heroic stand and had decided he could not leave such brave men to drown, despite the risks to his own ship. The Swedes pulled 68 men from the water, all that remained of the 256-man crew. Thanks to the Jervis Bay's sacrifice, 33 of the 38 merchant ships escaped to reach Britain. For his extraordinary valor, Captain Edward Fegen was posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross, the highest military decoration. The Jervis Bay was gone, but her story lived on as a testament to the fact that even in the face of certain defeat, bravery can change the course of history.